Hello there, everybody. I'm Mr. Game & Pie, and welcome to the 10th episode of Minecraft. Alright, 2 Minecraft episodes in a row. This barely ever happens. Anyway, as you can see, a little bit of time has passed since the last episode. I put in some chests and some crafting benches, and some time has gone to allow this to happen right here. And apparently it still wasn't actually ready. Oh, wait. This looks like it's, Actually, no, it needs to be a bit more brown. Alright, it needs a bit more time to take effect. So we'll come back here later. But as you can see, the crops have been growing. All of the water has been put into the areas. And, in general, the garden is, the farm is basically done at this point. Alright, so one thing that I'd like to note real quick is that apparently the Xbox 360 version of the game is actually up to date with the computer version, or at least a lot closer to being up to date with it. Because I was playing the game at my friend's house. It was his first time really playing the game. He got it for the Xbox 360. And, well, whenever I was playing it, there were a lot of things that are implemented in the modern version of the game that I don't have here. But he did. Alright, so here's our big ol' crazy cave. And I've been expanding a little bit in these directions, as you can see. We can see the areas down there. Let's expand in this direction right now. But yeah, we had a good time. We were making all kinds of crazy stuff. Big fort. He had a very awkward starting area. But we made do. We made a pretty cool base of operations for him to work in. And that was a lot of fun. And just having so much fun in his world made me decide, you know what, I want to play some of this world today. And so here I am, Minecrafting it up. And it feels like I should have glass somewhere. That is sand, right? Yes. Yeah, I'll just put that much in there right now. Alright, I'm pretty sure I have some glass here. Yes, I do. Okay. I won't need a... Well, actually, I better just take a whole stack. Why not? But anyway, I'm not just going to make an episode completely randomly. I do have a topic for this episode. However, it isn't exactly like a super modern topic. It's just sort of a random thing that I've been mulling through my head for a long time now. And it's what I call my chain of fiction. You see, by being a fan of one thing, you often run into fans of another thing, and then, because of that, become a fan of that thing too. And, basically, I'm just going to tell you how I've become what my various fandoms have led me to. So first of all, let me start with what was basically my very first fandom. I was a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. You see, whenever I was like 4 years old, I went to a place owned by my mom's friend, and her son was there. And her son had a Sega Genesis with a bunch of Sega Genesis games. Well, this was around the time that the Dreamcast was coming out. Either it was about to come out, or it had come out. If I was 4 years old, this would have been like... Let's see here... 1997, 1998, somewhere around there. And so, he decided to give me his Sega Genesis and all of his Sega Genesis games. And, that was because he was going to be getting a Dreamcast, and he figured that the Dreamcast would replace the Sega Genesis. I feel sorry for this person. I have never seen him since. I would not give him his Sega Genesis back if he asked, but I do feel sorry for him that he gave that to me, because Dreamcast didn't do too well. But in any case, so yeah, he gives me his Dreamcast, and he has a lot of Sega games. They include the first 3 Sonic the Hedgehog games, Miss Pac-Man, which is to this day the best classic-style Pac-Man game I have ever played. And, let's hear The Jungle Book, The Incredible Hulk, and, Mortal Kombat. He gave Mortal Kombat for the Sega Genesis to a 4-year-old. Yeah. I never played that game. My parents were like, no, Thomas, you don't play this game, this is bad. I was like, okay, because I was a good kid, I listened to my parents. And so, for a long time, I'm a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, and because I'm a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, you see, at my school, I was kind of known as being the only guy that was actually good at playing any of the Sega Genesis games, because I went to this thing called Aftercare. I was at a private school, and because of that, not everyone's parents would live nearby. There weren't buses to take people home and such. And so, basically, there was an aftercare system so that people could have some place to stay while they waited for their parents to get out of work and get over there and such. And I was always in aftercare because both my parents worked. And in aftercare, they had a Sega Genesis with, wouldn't you know it, the first 3 Sonic the Hedgehog games. And technically, the way that the system was supposed to work is you would either play for 5 minutes or until you died. How the system actually worked, as I've stated in some series previously, is that you would sit down and watch Mr. Game and Pipe play the video game because he's the only one that's good at it, and it's entertaining to watch somebody who's good at playing the game. And so, well, I wasn't exactly the most popular guy around. During Aftercare, I was known as that guy who can play video games really well and talk about it really well. So, even whenever I was like, this would have been 1st and 2nd grade, so I've been like 6 to 8 years old. Even back then, I was doing Let's Plays, even though Let's Plays weren't really a thing back then. Now, in 3rd grade, there was a computer. Well, actually, no. During my entire time there at that school, there were various computers with a lot of different video games on it. And from these computers, I learned about various series. Commander Keen. I learned of Sonic 3D Blast. There was a Galaga-type game on there. There was a lot of stuff, but there was one computer in particular that had a ton of NES games on it. And one of the NES games was Kirby's Adventure. Now, being the gamer guy, I was all over these computers, like, all the time. Whenever I wasn't on the Sega Genesis, anyway. And so, I see this game, Kirby's Adventure, and if you've watched my Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland Let's Play, you know that the right arrow key that you used to move Kirby around was broken. So, and this was applied to all the NES games, and because of the way that Kirby works, it was the only one that was even moderately playable. Because Kirby can fly, and you can easily avoid enemies without actually having to go left or right freely. And, I could tell that Kirby's Adventure was a good game. I couldn't actually play the game as effectively as one should be able to, but just by seeing it, I knew. And then, that's when, basically, a couple years later, I would have been in 4th grade at that point. I would have switched schools, because I switched schools between 3rd and 4th grade. And, I see this cartoon on a channel known as Foxbox, which I hadn't heard of previously. And it was Kirby Right Back At Ya. And it's like, oh hey Kirby, this is a video game character. This is awesome. They make cartoons about video games that aren't Sonic? And so I start watching it, and eventually advertisements started playing that were for Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. And I could tell immediately that, yeah, this is that game that I played, except it'll actually work if I get a Game Boy Advance. And so I got a Game Boy Advance, and I started playing Kirby, and I loved it immediately. I thought it was the best thing ever. And eventually, as time went on and I got games like Kirby and the Amazing Mirror and such, Kirby became the only video game character to ever surpass Sonic in my eyes for a significant amount of time. You know, there are those times where you run into a new video game character and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And, you know, they stay as your, like, favorite video game character for a while, and then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, it's like, oh yeah, that's still a very good video game, but I don't know, it's not as new, I'm not as impressed by it anymore. There's always gonna be stuff like that. But ultimately, Kirby's always been number one, and then Sonic's always been number two. That's been a pretty consistent thing for me. And so, this is the part where I get onto the internet. Now, obviously, I'm a kid, I'm on the internet, and it's like, okay, what do I look up? Well, how about my favorite video game series? I'll look up Kirby. And this is whenever I run into what was, at least at one point, the best Kirby website basically ever. It's known as Kirby Rainbow Resort. These days, it isn't really run by anything, and that makes me very sad, because it was a very good website. And this leads me to the next thing that I find. It's called Brawl in the Family. It's a webcomic based off of Super Smash Bros. Brawl primarily, so that gives you an idea of when this is happening, because it's several years later. And it is very Kirby focused, at least at the beginning. It's always been a multi-series webcomic, since this is Brawl we're talking about, lots of video game series there. But Kirby has always been especially focused on. And so Kirby Rainbow Resort, seeing this, they put up a little post about it, like, hey, there's this webcomic, Kirby's cool in it, go check it out. And so I do, and I became a fan of Brawl in the Family fairly early on in its history. I'd say issue 50 hadn't even been out yet. These days I think they're like at 400 or something, to give you an idea of how long this has been. And so I'm a fan of Brawl in the Family now. And then, you see, now we start getting to various branches, because Brawl in the Family, being a webcomic, does have ads on its website. And these ads have led me to various webcomics over the years. One, it was, let's see what it's called, Flying Man and Friends. Flying Man and Friends was an amazing webcomic. I don't even know how to describe it, just look it up, love it, read it, it is amazing. Everybody should know Flying Man and Friends. It was canceled a couple years ago. The archive isn't all that long, it won't take too long to read. Just go ahead and check it out. I got into Flying Man and Friends whenever it was still fairly early. It was awesome. Okay, I'm not even gonna go into much more than that, except for the fact that there was a lot of fourth wall humor, and I absolutely love fourth wall humor. If you don't like fourth wall humor, you might not be too interested in it. But who doesn't like fourth wall humor, really? Are you like not human or something? So, yeah, Flying Man and Friends, I learned about it from Brawl in the Family. That didn't really lead me to anywhere, though. That part of the chain of fiction sort of ends right there. However, now we move on to another section that I got from Brawl in the Family's ads. This webcomic is known as Precocious. And Precocious, it's kind of like Peanuts. You know, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, all those guys, except the characters are anthropomorphic animals, and they're geniuses. And it is a very good webcomic as well. It is my favorite webcomic, actually. Even to this day, I've found other webcomics and such, but they've never been as good as Precocious. It's the one that I always go to. It's updated daily, actually. Very good. The comics are very short each, not very lengthy. I'd say it might take you maybe a day or two to go through the archives. You should definitely check it out. It's definitely something that I recommend. And Precocious leads me to several things, but first, I just gotta bring up a few more things that I got from Brawl in the Family. One was WhatDoYouDo.net. And WhatDoYouDo.net was, it was a webcomic that basically had the viewers determine what the character did. It followed the adventures of, James Woodrock, an elf that had magic powers. It was sort of a D&D inspired universe. And there were all sorts of hijinks and crazy misadventures. Unfortunately, as time went on, the person that ran the site, I believe he was known as GM Chris, he was no longer able to keep the site running. And as such, WhatDoYouDo.net has ended at this point. It's quite sad, really. But that's just the way things go sometimes. And, well, actually, not only has WhatDoYouDo.net ended, but the website doesn't exist anymore. There is a forum out there, and I believe they've compiled the entire comic into some files. But it isn't going on anymore, the website is down, and that makes me very sad, because it was a very funny webcomic. I always loved reading it. At its height, it was uploading like twice a day on a regular basis. That's how it usually went anyway. And it was just great. I loved that webcomic to death. Literally, it died. Alright, let's see here. What else have I run into because of Brawl in the Family's ads? I think that those are the main ones, at least. It isn't like there's a whole lot of other ones left to even discuss. Alright. So, I guess now is the time where I start talking about Precocious. Well, first of all, during my various Let's Plays, you might have noticed that I often reference TV tropes. Well, I learned about TV tropes because of Precocious. And TV tropes alone has led me to, like, a bajillion series. So I'm not going to get into every single thing that I've gotten to from TV tropes, but just to name a few, let's see here. There was Order of the Stick, which is a cool webcomic, once again based off of a D&D styled universe. Even more so than James Woodrock's Adventures, WhatDoYouDo.net. Let's see, what else was there? There was Dr. McNinja, which is a completely ridiculous webcomic in all of the best ways. There was, there's just a lot of series. I'll just leave it at that. Those are two of the most, those are the two that I remember most. Yes, I definitely got that from TV trope-styled situations. And so, Precocious has led me to other things as well, including one series which has become rather infamous over the past couple of years now. It is known as My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. You see, one of the people who is, or at least was, big on, I can't even remember the name of the site right now. It's, well, the guy's name is Techoramity, and he is a big Precocious fan. And so one day, I'm on the Precocious forums, and I see Techoramity, and his avatar is Rainbow Dash, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, the best thing is ponies ever," or something like that in his signature blurb. And at first I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever floats your boat, man. I don't care." I was never one of the haters. And so I see that avatar there, and I see his signature, and it just sort of goes by me at the time. However, as time went by, other Precocious fans began to become fans of the series as well. It all sort of culminated whenever Christopher J. Poulsen, that's the guy that makes the comic, by the way, that's his name, became a brony himself, and actually started inserting references into the comic, resulting in a lot of discussion of the show in a couple of the comment sections of his comics. And it was at that point that I was like, okay, what the hamster is this thing? So I look it up on TV tropes, of course, because that's a thing that I look at now. And I learned that it's actually kind of a phenomena. Very popular, with a secondary, or secondary demographic. So I think, okay, there's all these guys, and they like this show, and they like Precocious, which is my favorite webcomic. And then the guy who makes my favorite webcomic also likes this show. And so I begin to think, well, is it really worth watching? And so I look at the cute designs like, well, it is pretty cute, but then again, Kirby's really cute, and he's basically the best thing ever. So that doesn't really mean anything negative. Yeah, sure, I'll try it out. And I come in with some pretty high expectations. I mean, I read about this thing and it's supposed to be really big, and yeah, I'd say that those expectations were met. Now, over time, I start going to an MLP forum, known as MLP Forums, or Equestria Forums, or something like that anyway. And, you see, over time, I become a part of its spam section, which is basically just a section of the forum meant for random silliness. And I do like it, and I do enjoy my random silliness. And from that, eventually, Homestuck becomes a pretty big deal on this section of the forum. And so, I try out Homestuck as well, and it's again something that I enjoy a lot. Homestuck is about basically 3 kids who play a video game that destroys their world, but is meant to create a new world if they win and succeed and such. And it's played out a lot like a Let's Play, I'd say, at least the first act or two. And I actually enjoy the first act. A lot of people will tell you, whenever it comes to Homestuck, that the first acts are very slow and monotonous. I don't think so. I love the first acts. Those are some of my favorite. That's some of my favorite stuff from the series right there. And so I become a Homestuck fan pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long at all. And from Homestuck, I haven't really gone a whole lot of places. I met this one girl, Bunny, who I call her, that's her nickname. And I met her because I was a fan of both Homestuck and MLP. And because of her, I ended up getting a Tumblr. I'm Mr. Game & Pie on Tumblr, by the way. I'm Mr. Game & Pie pretty much anywhere, but you know, that's just how I roll. And basically, from Tumblr, I have run into a couple series, but nothing that I've really become super interested in, like I have with all these other things. And so that is at least one chain of fiction, where I became a fan of one thing because I was already a fan of another thing. And as a result, now you know that I'm a fan, a bunch of things that I'm a fan of. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. There's one series in particular that just sort of seems to defy the chain in any particular way, and that series is Mega Man. Now, Mega Man, I started becoming interested in the Mega Man series one day, because well, first of all, the first time that I ran into Mega Man was because of the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. I said, oh hey, look, this series, I had basically never heard of Mega Man until that point, and I said, hey look, this series has an Anniversary Collection. If they have survived long enough for something like this, and that must mean that they're pretty good. I mean, the only other Anniversary Collection I see these days is, like, the Sonic collections. I love Sonic, so that must mean that this stuff is good. So I pick up the Anniversary Collection from GameStop. It was used. And I put it into my game, and only one of the games actually works on it. And keep in mind that this has, like, 10 games on it or so, something like that. And only Mega Man 2 works. Now, many people say that Mega Man 2 is the best Mega Man game. I don't agree with that. I think Mega Man 10 is the best Mega Man game, with, like, Mega Man 4 coming in a close second. So, obviously, my taste in Mega Man games is completely ridiculous. But that's aside the point. And then, well, because only one of the games actually works on it, I decided to take the game back to GameStop. And I never really get, like, a fixed copy of it or anything. But then, a couple years later, it's at the point where the Wii Shop channel made the internet free. Originally, you had to pay like 500 Wii points or something to be able to use the internet on the Wii. And whenever they made it free, anyone who had originally bought the Wii Shop channel got all their Wii points back. They didn't get actually money back, just Wii points. And I decide, you know what, I'm going to use these Wii points to get a hard game. I want to be challenged by this game that I get. And the game that I get is Mega Man 3. Let me tell you, I was not disappointed. Mega Man 3 is, to this day, one of the only Mega Man games that I have both played, but have not beaten. It is pretty crazy. Alright, let's check on the crops. I'm pretty sure that by now, they'll have grown a decent amount. And so I get Mega Man 3, and I can't even like beat one Robot Master. It is insane. And yes, I can't even beat Top Man. And so I put it down. I kind of forget about it for a while. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm into these Let's Plays now. I should check out some Mega Man Let's Plays. I'm pretty sure there's some good stuff about that. And because of that, I run into the likes of Nintendo Capri Sun and Rome Mithril. And because of their cool Let's Plays and Perfect Runs, respectively, I get into the Mega Man series for real this time. I pick up Mega Man 3, and I still can't beat it, of course, because even today I haven't beaten it. But, I'm interested in it again, and I start getting the other Mega Man games. I get Mega Man 1, 2, and 4 on the Wii Shop channel, as well as Mega Man 9 and 10. And, I start playing the games better, I start getting really serious with it. Oh, by the way, once I collect wheat from the particularly brown patches of grass, I will get seeds. Right now I have 9 seeds in my inventory, and by combining 3 pieces of wheat, I can create a piece of bread. Now, I do actually have some health missing, so I should probably recover some of that. Boom, and that's how much health that recovers. Oh, look at you. Alright. Now then, I have a couple different... oh, it should be noted that wheat does not stack. So, it's a good idea to keep, like, some boxes in your greenery or barn or whatever you want to call this, so that you can just keep the wheat in here. So whenever you're running low on health, you can just put the wheat in here, and everything will be good. But right now, actually I'm not missing that much health. I'll just put the wheat in here already. Boom. Also, funny story, while I was doing stuff off-screen, these 2 pieces of glass and the 4 pieces of glass over there were actually missing. And it was in the middle of the night, and anything could have come in here and just attacked me. But instead it was just a cow! Yeah, seriously, cow just randomly comes in here, starts walking around, it's like, what the hamster are you doing? And, well, at this point, obviously, I put the glass up there, and yeah, it's about time to call this an episode. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing my various stories about me being a fan of stuff. It's been quite a chain of fiction that I've weaved over the years that I've been doing life. But with that said, I've been Mr. Game & Pie, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay sufficiently awesome.